Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Today, I've got Nikki, who is a registered veterinary nurse at Alba Vet. She also runs a great Facebook page called Feline Fabulous Vet Nursing. She's great at all things behaviour, especially cat behaviour. So today, I've invited her to have a chat with us, and we're going to talk all about cats and toileting. So cats and their pees and poos. So thank you for joining us for that joyous subject, Nikki.
Thank you for inviting me. It's very pleasurable to be along here, even if it's not a pleasurable topic.
Yeah. So, what is it that makes peas and poos such an exciting subject for us to talk about today?
It seems to be such a common thing that is inappropriate for caregivers, where a lot of the times it might be appropriate for the felines.
Mm-hmm.
And certainly in practice, my pure vets are seeing a lot of stressed cats just now. We're seeing a lot of blocked bladders. We're seeing a lot of inappropriate urination. And it just seems to be a really sort of common thing because lifestyle these days is not suited in general to our domestic cats. So yeah, I think it's a lot of education that's needed for the general public to give the best care possible to their cats.
Yeah, and I think it's a tricky thing as well, isn't it? Because often we know that cats will inappropriately urinate or the other way and not urinate and get blocked because they're stressed. But unfortunately, them doing the inappropriate urination is really stressful for us humans. So it can really damage the relationship we have with our cats, can't it?
Absolutely. And it's difficult to sometimes explain to caregivers that we need to understand why they're doing it or not doing it, as the case may be. And usually it's lots of little subtle things in the household that just need changed or added or subtracted in order for the cats to just feel a bit more comfortable in their own home.
Yeah, yeah. And why is it that if you've got a cat who's stressed, why is it that they decide to pee somewhere outside of their litter tray?
So I'm no complete expert, but I do find that a lot of cats are trying to show us why they're stressed. I mean, if we're stressed, we may bite our nails, we may pick at our skin, we may get really grumpy with our other halves, etc. Cats obviously can't verbalize in the same way as humans do, so they need to show it in other ways. And it can be very, very subtle, or it can be downright in your face
Mhm.
by showing you some poo or some pee, or showing you an absolute empty litter tray because they're so stressed they don't feel that they can urinate at all. So it's very much watching out for what your cat does and why it does it, and trying to think back what could be stressing the cat out.
Yeah, exactly. And I think one important thing to mention, sort of before we really get into how to make your house cat friendly, stress free house, is that if you are in this unfortunate position and your cat has decided to urinate elsewhere in the house, that you really mustn't use strong smelling cleaning agents to clean up the area. No bleach, nothing. Get the Dettol away, because we always think of dogs of having a great sense of smell, but actually for cats, the smell profile of their home is one of the most important things that we'll probably talk about in a minute when we're talking about how to make your home cat friendly. And if you put a really strong smelling chemical on top of where they've urinated, they're going to want to cover that smell with their own smell. And the easiest way to do that is to go back and pee there or poo there again. So you actually create this cycle for yourself accidentally. So we always recommend using an enzymatic cleaner. There's loads you can get actually. Most vets stock them, or even at like home stores. I think Home Base and those kind of shops usually have them, that are designed specifically for pet urine, to make sure that you're not making things worse accidentally.
Absolutely. And a lot of people don't realise that and try to clean it up with especially like citrus smells and stuff like that. And they just don't realise that's just the same component as cat urine. So the cat is actually, you're actually making things worse for the cat
Mm.
by putting that smell back down for them. And what I've actually found recently, I don't know if this is the same for you, but a lot of caregivers are coming to show me what kind of enzyme cleaner they have, and they have perfume in them.
Mm.
So we've actually been recommending like a sort of homemade product with like biological washing powder and stuff like that, to because then you know it's like completely
Yeah.
scent free.
Mhm.
Because and trying to explain to caregivers that at the end of the day, I know that the manufacturers are trying to make it a bit more human friendly, but
Mhm.
because humans like scents, but at the end of the day you really need to think about the cat, and the cat doesn't like the scent, as you say, that can be really stimulating to them. So any kind of scent from that product can then send them back to it, so then you're just having this horrible vicious circle.
Yeah, exactly. Especially when you're trying to do, you're trying to do the right thing, and actually you're making it worse for your cat. That's not what any of us want to do. And I think sometimes you hear the advice, as you said, with the citrus smells. People say, "Oh, well, cats don't like lemon or whatever, so put that down." But the idea is we don't want to try and deter the cat, because that's just going to make them more stressed, and that is when you wind up with your blocked cats and things like that. So then they just don't urinate at all, and then they wind up with this life-threatening condition where their bladder has become so inflamed and sludged up that they can't urinate, and they're at risk of their bladder rupturing and becoming really, really sick very quickly, and for us having to do very invasive and expensive procedures to try and save them. So we want to avoid that at all costs if we can. So I suppose if we think about what we can do to make the house a nice cat-friendly house, what are some elements that you think are really important for us to have in there?
Well, even before thinking about what's in the house is obviously vet trip, first of all, is to rule out any medical cases, because a lot of people are like, oh no, that it's absolutely behavioural, and you're just like, well, first things first, rule out medical issues. So if you've had the clear from the vet, there's nothing in the urine, and we're now looking at the behaviour side of things, is to really look at your house in a cat friendly manner. So a lot of times, a lot of people don't realise that cat litter can be aversive to cats at various ages. So your older cats might find some of the harder wood pellet litter to be really sore in their paws. So think about maybe a finer sand type litter for them. Also think about the type of litter tray that they also have in the house as well. So thinking about, again, for your older cats, is it maybe too big for them to step into? If you have a multi-cat household, think about, if you have hooded litter trays in the house, you may have a cat that likes to sit on the top and ambush anybody that comes in and out of the toilet, and then obviously the cat then will turn around and go, well, I'm not going there because I'm just going to get beaten up every time I go in. So I personally don't really like the hooded things, because I've seen a lot of issues with cats with that. So I definitely advise avoiding the hooded ones if you do have a multi-cat household. Again, they're catering for the human aspect. They're catering for keeping the smell in, and it's not really good for the cat, not only for the ambushing side of things, but obviously the scent can stay within if you're not cleaning the litter tray out quick enough. Again, with multi-cat households, think about how many trees you have. A lot of people don't realise that unless you know there's socially bonded groups within your home, as in cats that will touch each other when they're sleeping, they allogroom each other, your cats need to be classed as individuals. And for each cat that you have, you should have each resource plus an extra to give them choice. So making sure that if you have, say, for example, 3 cats in the house, making sure that you have 4 litter trays, 4 water bowls, 4 feeding bowls, but also where you place them is really important as well. So thinking about, if you have a lot of people have cat rooms, don't they, where they
Yeah.
have all the resources in one room. So then if you have 4 litter trays and you think, yeah, I've got 3 cats and 4 litter trays in the room, But all the cats think, hang on a minute, that's just one big toilet. So what you really need to think about is putting them in different areas of the house, quiet areas. You don't want to put them in high footfall areas as well, because like us, you don't really want to be doing the toilet while somebody's walking past all the time. So making sure that it's in a reasonably quiet area where they can urinate and defecate in peace. And again, when you're thinking about your older cats or cats that have had surgery, if your house has different levels, making sure that they have access to resources on each level, so you don't have to go, oh my goodness, I'm absolutely desperate for a pee, but the toilet is like 3 floors down because we're in
Mhm.
the townhouse. So think about having each resource on each level for cats as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, so location is important, number is important, and type of litter tray is important as well. I also think sometimes for like long-haired cats, they really hate those. You know, the clumping litter sometimes gets really stuck in their paws. Some of them really don't seem to like that. And also, when you get a new cat, ask what the previous litter has been, because some of them have very strong preference, and whatever your preference is doesn't really matter. It's what the cat's preference is that is important.
Absolutely. And again, think about the manufacturers, the people that sell stuff in pet shops are catering again for humans. So things like scented litter, scented liners, even liners as a whole, they're all catering for you as the caregiver, which, yes, the caregiver is important, but at the end of the day, these kind of things can detract the animal from actually using the litter tray. Again, as we've talked about, essentially important. So if a cat is really sensitive to smell, and then the toilet that it goes to is lovely and smelling of lavender because the cat litter's lavender and the litter liner's lavender smelling, and the cat goes, oh my boy, this is really giving me a sore head, I'm even going to pee there, then all you're doing is just telling the cat, yeah, just go and pee somewhere else. Behind the sofa might be a better place to do it then because there's no smells over there.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, those liners, they sometimes, especially for older cats, they can get their claws caught in it, can't they? Because they do want to dig after they've gone, and then if they're getting their
That's
claws
right.
caught, they don't like it. And you know, it's all stressful for them. So you also touched on before the whole idea of multi-cat households. Now this is often a major factor in stress in cats and inappropriate toileting in cats. What are some of the kind of subtle signs that you look for, or that you ask owners about, to try and work out if their cats are actually bullying each other, or if they do get on or not?
And that's the thing. Again, it's caregivers don't realise that cats are unique. I mean, this is why I love cats, because humans and dogs are very much a social species, whereas cats, on the whole, and I always say this all the time, on the whole, cats are quite solitary. Alex, the cat nurse, always rams this into us. They're self sufficient solitary survivors. They prefer to be on their own. They prefer to eat on their own. They don't prefer to come together unless they, on the whole, they want to mate or have to share resources like food, etc. So when it comes to multi cat households, on the whole, you tend to find that cats are put together because the humans think that they need friends, that they need a family, whereas the majority of cats are quite happy doing their own thing. They're very quite unsociable. But that's the thing that you really do have to stress to people, is that on the whole, you have to consider each cat as an individual, whereas you will get some cats that are like, oh my goodness, I can't cope without somebody there. They have to have
Yeah.
somebody to cuddle into, to groom, etc. One of my vet nurse friends at work, she has 2 cats, and she sends me photographs all the time, and they're cuddling into each other, they're grooming each other, they're lying all over each other. Whereas I have a 5-year-old cat downstairs who would absolutely be horrified if I came in with another cat. He's just the typical self-sufficient solitary survivor that just wants to be left on his own. He'll come up and initiate contact, but don't touch me kind of scenario. He wants to be on his own. So when it comes to multi-cat households, take a step back and have a look at the cats that are in your house, and are they all on the same bed but touching each other? Are they all eating out of the bowls together but want to? Or is one coming along and eating and the next one comes along and eats? Are they playing with each other, or do they just completely ignore each other? And that's when you have to think about, yeah, social group. Those three are quite happy together, or no, I've got 3 individual cats. So it's learning body language, it's learning cat language, and it's really sort of watching and listening with your eyes to see what each cat does in your household and how they communicate with each other.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you don't need to be upset if you've got 3 cats that are all housemates rather than best friends. They can still have really fulfilled, happy lives as long as you meet all of their needs, and that they're quite happy to share, although they like being solitary. They don't mind sharing as long as it's not a competition. So if you make sure there's plenty of high spaces for them to go, there's plenty of toilet spaces, there's plenty of access to food and to water and to humans beds, which tends to be another area where there's a bit of to do, then they're quite happy to flat share. That's fine. They don't have to be best friends. So we're not suggesting you have to rehome one or anything like that, but it's certainly really helpful to be aware of how many resources you need to be thinking about. The other thing I see sometimes and have to explain to owners, and that you maybe see as well, is that sometimes cats are very subtle in their psychological games with each other. So often people are like, oh well, they never fight, they're fine, they just ignore each other, but you'll find actually that the one cat likes to lie in the main access route to the place where all the resources are. So just like you were saying about if you've got a cat room, if you're like, oh, that cat, he always likes lying in the corridor there, he's so silly, and then as the other cat goes past, he just does a little swipe or a little growl, or the other cat's too scared to access. That cat that's doing the lying is doing some very, very subtle bullying of the other cat. And it's not them being horrible, it's just normal cat nature. He's just, protecting his resources in a very non-confrontational way.
Exactly. And that's what a lot of people don't realise, is that you really do have to treat it like, is it a family or is it a university flat share, as you say?
Yeah.
Because you can spend 3 years, 4 years, 5 years at university flats, halls or whatever, and not really know the people that you're with. Whereas in the family home, yes, you're with the people all the time and you get on them really well, but sometimes some people really hack you off and you're really not in the mood for them and you're just like, leave me alone. So yeah, it's absolutely reading each cat and just taking them as an individual while they're in a group.
Exactly. So if you've got a cat who's inappropriately toileting, then you've thought about your litter tray, so you've thought about the size of it and the location and the type of litter and how many there are, and now you've started to dive a bit deeper into thinking about the cats' relationships with each other, and you're sorting that out. But another factor I think we should mention, and I know this is something that Danielle Gunmore at the Edinburgh Vet School is really, really hot on and not afraid to talk about, is how us humans are interacting with our cats. So what can we do to ensure that we're not inadvertently adding to our cat's stress?
Remember that cats are inherently unsociable. And if they don't want to be clapped, don't clap them. If they come up and lie on you, it doesn't give you permission then to stick your hands all over them and clap them, because they might not want that. As I say, my cat is the absolute classic for this. And I'm trying to explain, I mean, even I have a struggle. I mean, I'm a degree level student at Edinburgh University in clinical animal behaviour. I've got 20 odd years of veterinary nursing, and even I struggle to try and explain to my husband and my 2 sons that if the cat comes up and gives you a cuddle, that does not mean he's giving you permission for you to touch him. He wants to initiate his control, that he's quite happy to be with you, but don't clap him, because then they wonder why he swipes at them or he bites them, etc. So it's definitely sort of being aware that you don't have the control, the cat has the control. A lot of people, I'm sure Danielle did actually say this, I'm sure she said this in a recent lecture, that we are just their slaves.
Yeah.
That we are just there to provide them with their resources and just leave us alone kind of scenario. And it is true. But again, individuals, you may get cats that are totally all over you,
Mm-hmm.
that totally need cuddles and claps, that prefer to get their belly rubbed. I mean, the big thing in the cat behavior world is cats don't like their bellies rubbed. There's certain parts of the body that they don't like being touched, but you will get some cats that love it, that
Yeah.
you can do literally anything to. But then you'll get the majority of cats that don't, and it's trying to explain to caregivers that yes, you do need to look at your own cat, read your own cat's language, and say, is that the kind of cat that is going to enjoy con- uh, contact with us, or is it the kind of cat that just needs to have you around when they need them, and take it from there? Whereas, as I say, my cat and my friend's cats are like two totally different ends of the
Yeah.
spectrum with cat behavior.
Exactly. And I think you're absolutely right. It is about assessing your individual cat, learn where they like to be touched, if they do like being touched, learn where, is their favorite for a little pet. Often like around the head, chin, behind the ears is a fairly safe bet. And you can always just try petting them a little bit and then stop. And then if they push themselves into you, that means please continue. But it's always worth just doing a little check with that stop, because even if they like it, they do have a tolerance for how much. Well, it's just like us. Like, you might quite like it if someone's rubbing your back or something, but if they did it for like 2 hours, you'd be going, come on, mate, that's enough, get off now. With cats, it's just often a little bit shorter. And there's and I think as well, because they haven't evolved to be living in social groups like humans and dogs, who are very expressive with our faces, cat body language of, okay, I've had enough now, is quite subtle and often very quick between, okay, that's enough, and I really mean that's enough. There's often a shorter time frame there for you to be paying attention. So if you're mindlessly sort of stroking the cat while you're doing something else, and then suddenly they bite you, it's not really their fault. They have told you, it's just you weren't paying attention. So touching and clapping and belly rubs and things like that can sometimes not be the best way to interact with your cat. And for International Cat Day this year, which is a campaign run by the International Society of Feline Medicine and International Cat Care, who are both great charities for any sort of behavioural advice. They've got a great website if you are struggling with any sort of cat behaviour. The theme this year was to actively play with your cats for 5 minutes a day, every day, with a wand toy. And I think that was a really great campaign. And actually, for family members who are struggling to bond with their cat, I think it can make a massive difference in how you and your cat enjoy each other.
Absolutely. And play is so important for cats because it helps with that innate experience that they have inside, that they have to pounce, that they have to stalk, that they have to grab something. But you don't want that to be your hands or your feet
Mm-hmm.
or the baby that's crawling along the floor. And choice of toys has to be really, really important for that as well. So your wand toy is absolutely the best thing. Laser pens should be absolutely binned and cremated, because a lot of people don't realize that it can actually just add to frustration.
Mm-hmm.
And it's seen as simple things like that if you constantly over arouse your cat through laser toy play, then if the cat is totally stressed, then you could go back to having issues
Yeah.
like inappropriate urination, because all laser toys are doing is part of the routine of stalking and preying on something and then trying to actually capture it, but you've got nothing there to capture.
Mm-hmm.
And then so you're constantly repeating this cycle but missing a huge part of it out, and then the cat gets really, really frustrated, and that's when they start to bite, they can scratch, they can inappropriate urinate, because they're just so frustrated by not being able to finish off this natural routine. So play is super duper important to bond between you and the cat without it being too stressful for both of you.
Yeah, exactly. I actually think it's a really good way to get children to get involved with their cats and bond with them, because, as you say, touch can be a little bit less predictable for some cats, but almost all cats all cats really do love play. I always get a little bit sad when owners say, "Oh no, they don't play," and often when you delve a little bit further into that, there's either a good reason, like they have obesity issues or painful joints or something else happening. Very commonly, it's actually more to do with a multi-cat or multi-pet dynamic, and the cat is too nervous to play in front of another cat or in front of another dog. So that's another sort of thing to add in there. But if you work at it enough, all cats will enjoy playtime with you. You just sometimes have to find the right toy or the right time, or make sure that you've taken care of other things like pain relief and social interactions first.
Exactly. And I mean, we've got that case with our own cat, is that we always find that he was quite grumpy. Again, teaching the family body language, but also wondering why his behaviour wasn't particularly great. And we found that he had a mild case of hip dysplasia, and recently he's been found to have slight luxation of his patella as well. So, I mean, that to us is like having a sore back and a sore knee every day.
Yeah.
Chronic pain can be really, really difficult for everybody. But if you don't know these kind of things and you don't realise that they then manifest into him being a bit grumpy with play, a bit grumpy around being touched, etc., then it just escalates. And then you end up with a cat that everybody thinks is like, oh, he's totally unsociable.
Yeah.
And then a cat that does things that aren't really nice, like the inappropriate urination because he's so sore. And again, it's just getting to know your cat. And that's why vet checks are super important in the first place, because it may be inappropriate urination, but it might be due to pain. I mean,
Yeah.
I've just been speaking recently to Hannah Capon at Canine Arthritis Management. We was talking about how 80% of behavioural cases are pain related. So we have to think about why is that there's a reason for them doing things, and a lot of the times it could be something to do with pain. And don't just think about it being an old cat. My cat's only 5 and he's got hip dysplasia and he's got a luxating patella, so he's got sore back and sore knee and sore hips, and he's just like, oh, I feel in pain all the time. But see, now he's on constant pain relief. Totally different cat, totally different behaviors.
And I think it's really tricky, isn't it, with cats? Again, chronic pain and inflammation in cats, they generally don't give us as many signals, again, because they're not social animals, and they're actually a funny combination, because although they're predators, really good ambush predators, they're also small enough to behave like prey animals as well. And we know as veterinary professionals that in prey species, they really give very, very little sign of chronic pain, because if they do, they're at more risk of being predated upon. So they're at higher risk of someone eating them if they look weak. So cats are a funny one, and often the signs of pain and inflammation are super subtle, and it can be things like inappropriate urination, grumpiness. Often it's like a pause before they make a jump, so they're having to kind of plan a little bit before they go for it. There's a slight stumble. You see cat videos on the internet, they're always a bit of a mixed blessing, aren't they? Because there's so many where of cats, funny cats missing jumps, and all I'm seeing is painful cats. That the reason why they're missing jumps is because their muscles aren't behaving as they want, and everyone, people are laughing, and I'm going, oh, poor darling, because it's so much pain. So looking for much more
absolutely subtle. Feel the same with my own particularly my youngest son. He is definitely of the YouTube generation, and he's constantly showing me, look mummy, look at these cat videos, and I'm like, no, this is a good opportunity to show you that that's actually not good for the poor cat. It may look funny to us as humans, but let's not anthropomorphize things. That cat's actually showing stress signs or fear signs or pain signs, or all of the above. So it's YouTube has a lot to answer for.
Yes, I know, it's great for learning, not so good, and some of the cat videos are great, but you have to know what you're looking at. So I think especially we've historically underdiagnosed back pain in cats. It's just started to be more of a thing. So going to see a vet who's really comfortable with feeling epaxial muscles and detecting subtle changes in pain and inflammation can be really, really useful when you're assessing for reasons for inappropriate urination. And also, not just inappropriate urination, if we're talking about toileting in its entirety, in older pets especially, so especially in older cats, but even in some younger cats, then constipation can be a massive issue and a massive problem, and lead to things like inappetence, again lead to pain. So sometimes you don't even realize your older cat is constipated if they're going outside, and sometimes it takes them stopping eating or something like that for you to know. But the sort of, if we're not even talking about urine, constipation is another big issue in cats that can have some behavioral consequences, isn't it?
Absolutely. And any mother that's had a cesarean section knows that after the operation, my goodness, all you want to do is just poo. And so if you can relate that to a cat who can't poo, it's a horrible, horrible feeling.
Yeah.
It's really, really stressful, painful, and the cat can't turn around and say to you, hang on a minute, I really need to go for a poo.
Mm-hmm.
So you just need to read body language. You need to see what the cat is doing. And then you've got the opposite thing, whereas you get caregivers that turn around to you and say, oh, my cat keeps pooing in the driveway, or it keeps pooing around the edges of the grass perimeters of our garden, and it's really, really annoying. And I've even caught my own cat doing it. And you're just like, yeah, that's actually very normal for the cat. It's called middening, and it's a communication to mark their territory. Cats are very territorial on the whole. They don't like other people coming into their territory. So they're putting scent communication out there to say, look, you get lost, don't come in my spot. So it's a very, very important thing to think about feces and where it's happening, and maybe why it's not happening, as you say, if they are constipated.
Yeah, exactly. So I think toileting and our cat's toileting behavior can just tell us so much about what's going on with them, that it is something that we have to think about. And when it comes to cats and their health, as we said, because they're predator/prey species, you have to look for really subtle signs to be able to monitor their health properly, and toileting is certainly one of them. Obviously, that's a bit easier with an indoor cat than it is with an outdoor cat, but as you say, looking for evidence of middening or other things. If they are toileting indoors when they normally go outside, that's another sort of factor in there of what's happening to make them change their habits and their behaviors. There's so much that can be gleaned by that, I think. And as you said right at the beginning, really important to keep communicating with your vets and your vet nurses about what's happening, and don't just assume that it's because they're getting old, or because they're a bit stressed, or because they're making a point when you've done something to annoy them, and that they're like making a dirty protest. It's not really, none of those things are ever really the case. It's usually because there's some underlying condition, either a psychological or a physical condition, which we can help you address.
Definitely. And talking of indoor cats, a lot of people don't realise that indoor cats can be stressed by outdoor cats. Because again, if you look at your environment, a lot of people these days have patio doors. So they have neighbourhood cats. And we have this, again, talking again about my own cat, but we have this where we have a conservatory floor to ceiling doors and windows, and this cat comes along, passes by my cat, and my cat gets so stressed out about, how dare you come in here and come into my territory. but my cat's inside.
Mm-hmm.
So he gets frustrated, you hear him hissing, he's spitting, etc. But if that was to completely continue all the time, and my poor cat was getting stressed out by this all the time, he could then start to be so stressed that he wants to urinate in appropriate places in the house. He is fortunately an indoor-outdoor cat, so he has access to go outside. But a lot of people don't realise this with purely 100% indoor cats. You have to think about what that cat can see outside. Could it be getting frustrated by a neighbourhood cat passing by? And you can do simple things to alleviate that. Just opaque film up on the bottom half of the windows or the doors. You don't want to completely fill it, because you then don't want to go the opposite way and frustrate them by not giving them access to birds and wildlife, etc., because a lot of cats do like to look out. But you do want to block the immediate access, visual access, from anything that's sort of passing by the doorway, etc.
Yes, you definitely don't want to be eyeballing another cat, and that is a guaranteed way to make them very, very stressed, and they would be well within their rights as a normal cat to then start peeing in that sort of area, to mark that as their territory and to stop this cat, in their head, stop this cat from coming in, because they don't know that this cat definitely can't come in, and as far as they're concerned, everything that they can see is theirs, so they don't want this other cat coming in near them. And equally, if you do have an indoor-outdoor cat like yours, then making sure that your other outdoor cats are not coming into your house through the cat flap, and even if your cat's not coming face to face with them, they'll be leaving their scent around, and that is another common reason for cats starting to inappropriately urinate inside, is because they've had a visitor, and it's classically when we do what most of us do, which is we leave the food bowls in the same room as where the cat flap is, so a sneaky neighbouring cat knows that they can come in at night, or when it's very quiet, and they can come in and have a little snack and go away, but then your household cat finds that pretty outrageous, and that can be enough to stress them out.
Definitely. I mean, we've actually just recently had a case where a vet was asking me for some advice on this, where we had a caregiver that had recently had a baby, and one of the cats was inappropriately urinating in the house. And she was like, but she's always around the baby, she's in the baby's room, etc., stuff like that. And I said to them, look, send a video, just do a little video of your house and where your resources are. And there was a cat flap, and there was bowls of water on one side of the cat flap, and there was bowls of food on the other side, and there was patio doors in the other room. And I said to her, do you have any neighbouring cats? Oh yeah, there is one that potters by, and I think it has actually occasionally come in through the cat flap as well. And I was like, you probably find this as actually, the baby has just been like the tip of the iceberg. Yeah. There's a hell of a lot more going on underneath. And let's think about moving the resources away from the cat flap. Let's stick a camera up to see if maybe the cat is definitely coming in. Let's think about opaque film over the patio doors. Let's make sure that the resources for that cat are in the baby's room. Let's stick some food and water up there to make sure that it's got resources nearby and not get stressed out. But yeah, it seems to be quite a common thing.
Yeah.
Again, it's just like reading the signs for things that might be happening when you're not there. That's why in this day and age, it's really good to set up a Ring camera, or even just an iPhone or whatever, just leave it on and just actually see what happens when you're not there.
Yeah, exactly, because I mean, sometimes the cats will urinate right in front of us. That seems to really outrage people, and that tends to be when they're extremely stressed, but most of the time you're just finding the pools of urine, you're not finding the cat doing it, and you definitely don't see the trigger that has caused the cat to do that. So yeah, utilize technology. Technology can be a great thing for behaviorists. I think it's really opened up a lot of what we can do and how we can help you. So that's great. Well, I think that's covered all that we need to know about peas and poos for our feline friends. I'm sure there's more we could talk about. I think vets and vet nurses are known for our ability to talk about poo for hours on end and get very excited about it. So, but
Very excited.
I'm not sure everybody else wants to hear about that. So that's great. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm sure we can find other exciting cat behaviour things to have a chat about in the future. Yeah, we'll share this on your Feline Fabulous Vet Nursing page. So everyone definitely check that out, because there's lots of great tips on there for cat owners. And yeah, I'm sure we'll talk again soon.
Thank you very much, Miriam. You take care.
Thank you.